pleasure to welcome you to the third annual DAWNY, or Developmental Disabilities Alliance of Western New York Family Committee Legislative Breakfast. My name is Al Waters. Our lawmakers stand so we can recognize them for making the effort to be here today. And just from my personal observation in covering many of these stories, you'll notice that we're not dominated by Democrats or Republicans. Our delegation here has been very responsive to the needs of Western New York and the developmentally disabled with our legislature, both in Albany and in Washington.
My name is Barb DeLong. I'm the co-chair of the DAWNY Family Committee. Max Donatelli is the other co-chair of DAWNY Family Committee. More importantly, I am a mom. I'm a mom of two beautiful daughters. My 21-year-old daughter is here today, Laura. Laura's over there in the red and black. John, if you'd raise your hand. And my very good-looking husband, John. Laura's 21 years old. She's multiply disabled. Laura doesn't speak. She needs assistance with every task, and she even needs us to read her mind. John and I are great partners, and we've had many partners through agencies and the school system help us raise her, and against all odds meet many milestones. And we are blessed by her life and by her smile, and she brings joy to every person she meets. We're not going to live forever, however, and so we're going to talk about that today. I'll be sharing some facts and figures with you, some dilemmas, some challenges, but most importantly, what you'll be hearing today is about the families. These families represent thousands across New York State. Their stories are compelling. I urge you to listen to them with earnest, to be thinking about what can be done to help the 12,000 families across the state. We recognize that the state has been very busy paying attention to reform and transformation, and we applaud that. We think that's the right thing to do. But what's happening to the families as they feel like they're being left behind? They feel like all these new programs and new processes and new strategies, well, what about our needs now? We need our needs now met. And so we need to have that parallel path. We support reform, but if it results in our loved ones decreasing their level of service, we don't support that kind of reform. And so we need to have something happen. I will point out one thing, the transformational agreement, for those of you in the room that haven't heard about that, that's an agreement between the federal government and the state government. Now, I want to tell you today that there is a level of distrust that exists between the federal government and the state government because the feds don't think we're spending our money wisely in this area. Well, we need to change that perception. We need our federal officials and our state officials, our families, our agency professionals to get involved and change that perception. As a result of the transformational agreement, there's all these goals that are put out there about people and that the fact that we need to make sure that everyone's working, or those that can. There's housing goals, there's all sorts of goals. But we need to make sure that those goals are reasonable and that they make sense and they can be attained. And this level of distrust that has existed is not because of the families. So don't make the families affected by it. One size doesn't fit all. There's a huge spectrum of disabilities, from somebody that is dependent on their mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, cousin, friend for all their needs. And there's other individuals that can live with some supports, but they still need those supports. What's different this year? Well, availability of support and services has been reduced. Many of you know that in the last 3 years, there was $350 million taken out of the budget for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. In addition to that $350 million that was removed, this year in 2013, another $90 million was removed. Now, we applaud our elected officials for the appropriation that was just voted on and signed. We know that's been done. But I do want to point out that the Committee of Budget, the Budget Committee, Department of Budgets, I think that's what they're called, they have not allowed for any cash authorization to support that. So it doesn't mean, it means the money's not flowing into the system to meet the needs of our loved ones. We need to change that. We've got to talk about the fact that there's 2012 and 2013 graduates that are sitting at home waiting for something to do during the day because the funding is gone. So all the money that the state education department, our taxpayers' money, has gone to support those individuals in their school age and all the wonderful services and the therapies and the intervention, the reason why my daughter has met many of the milestones that they said she'd never do. Well, guess what? 2 years without services, what happens? Our loved ones get unhealthy, they're bored, they are lonely, and they need someplace to go. And this is unacceptable. There's 426 individuals just in our region waiting for something to do during the day. And we need to change that. We need to change that, and we will change that. There's no substitute for these services. We need to make a difference. And what we want you to know about unmet needs, well, guess what? The number is not shrinking. The number is growing. It's not going to go away. We need to make a change. We need to stop talking about it and start doing something. We need to put a plan in place, and we need to move. And the families are not throwing this over the fence to our elected officials. We are ready to roll up our sleeves and work with you and do whatever we need to do to make a difference, to change what's happening out there in this environment. Reduction in funding for transportation. We have all these goals for people to work, but the transportation system is a mess.
Joseph is a fighter. Now, we've met some amazing docs who were outstanding in their fields, and they've helped Joseph immensely, but I will never forget that. One of our biggest blessings is here today from Lutheran Services Society. Joe's service coordinator, Christy Williams-Woods, is at table 16, and she deserves a hand. She really does. She's talked me off the ledge thousands of times. Thank you, Christy. Now, when Joseph was 2, we'd been reading some scratch and sniff books. He was 2 years old, and Joe would crook his little finger, and he'd scratch and put the book to his nose. A flower. He'd scratch again. Cinnamon. And then I picked up Lyle Lyle Crocodile, which is not a scratch and sniff book. Again, Joseph crooks his little finger, scratches and puts the book to his nose, and he takes a deep sniff. I ask him, "What's that smell like, pal?" He paused, and then he says, "Smells like a book." Brilliant! My child is gifted! Mentally challenged my butt. Joe makes me laugh every single day. He loves music, dancing in his chair, horses, school friends, Wheel of Fortune. He's got a little thing for Vanna White. Jeopardy. He still loves books. I get Joe out into the community as much as possible to Bison's games, Excalibur boating trips, Shays for plays, and Disney on Ice. He comes with me when I work out in the community, and people are naturally drawn to his honesty and his smile. Heck, he's the mayor of Buffalo's West Side, shaking hands with all he sees walking down Richmond Avenue. I carry Purell a lot. He has a light inside him that we all could look at life the way that Joseph does. Joseph is going to be 21 next month, and I'm scared, man. It means that he's aged out of the school system. We are on wait lists that Barb told you about for day-hab programs that I've toured. So many people are on those wait lists, and I just don't know what we're going to do next year. I put my life on hold to be the best giver I can for my boy, and this next part is extremely hard for me to admit. It's become painfully obvious that it's not safe for Joe or myself being his daily caregiver. And we are on the mother of all waiting lists, the group home that Barb was telling you about. We've been on that list for 3 years now. The numbers that I got in Western New York as of April 2013 were 1,002, still waiting to find homes for their loved ones. That's just in Western New York. As Barb said, over 12,000 in the state. I've heard stories about a 70-year-old mom casting her 50-year-old son into homelessness because only emergent cases are finding placements in group homes. Can you imagine? Into homelessness. How can this be? I've heard of a person-centered agenda, and I have questions because Joe can't make his own personal decisions, so I have to make them. What happens when I'm gone? Who's going to make these decisions for my beloved son? So honored senators, congressfolk, legislators, and your representatives here. I know that you've heard a society should be judged on how we treat the most vulnerable among us. You cannot let this need for suitable placements to slide. There can be no more unconscionable cuts in funding to the providers who will see and nurture the light that comes from kids like my Joe. I will sit on the doorstep of Governor Cuomo until he'll agree to see me, to say to him, as I say to you today, you cannot stand idly by and let that hope and light be extinguished by lack of funding. You need to act now with grace.
Amen. Sing grace has we preserved and saved a wretch from the world for lost. Now I found smile, but now I see.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. So, dear political folk, we will ask God to guide you with that amazing grace to do the right thing and support, fight for these providers and for our loved ones.
Charlie is going to be 21 in May. He has for many years now attended Summit Educational Resources, and he has a brother, he has parents, he's a grandson, and he's a nephew. He's a very real person, and he's very loved. I'm trying to keep it together here. Charlie manages to enjoy his life despite many challenges that he faces. He is developmentally delayed. He's diagnosed with autism and pervasive developmental disability. He has hydrocephalus and a shunt. He has mild cerebral palsy. He has scoliosis, and he's nonverbal. So he has a pretty heavy load to carry every day. But I want you to know that he's my hero. And he's my hero because, frankly, he puts me to shame every day, because he gets up every day looking to enjoy his life, and he puts 100% of himself into that process every day. I wish I could say the same for me. I don't think I have been able to do that with any consistency. I moan and groan and think about the things I have to do that I don't want to do, and that's not Charlie. He looks forward to every single day. In addition to school, he's participated in many activities over time, over the years that have become available. Things like bowling, ice skating with Saba, therapeutic horseback riding, and adaptive skiing at Holiday Valley. And he loves doing those things, especially the horseback riding and the adaptive skiing. And in the past year, with the help of our service coordinator, Heather Moore, who is at table 18, I think, over there. Heather Moore. I don't know what we would do without the support and the assistance. And Heather's like a dog with a bone. She does not let it go. When she sees a need, she really just goes for it. And we appreciate that so much from her. And because of that, we finally got, one of the things we finally got is respite services that we were on the waiting list for probably 12 years before we got respite services. And that has been a real gift to us, that 1 week in a month Charlie can go and be with friends and be with people he likes. He loves going there, and it's a chance for him to do something other than with the same boring old people that he has to see every day of the week. Us, by the way. But our big concern is Charlie's aging out. Those two words that strike terror in my heart because of where things are right now in the community. This is a challenge for us as his parents, because Charlie needs a day habilitation program. He does not have the skills to self-initiate in behaviors that he enjoys. Well, he loves being with people, he loves doing things, he loves being out in the community. Without the support and encouragement from staff, he just can't do those things on his own. He enjoys doing small jobs, interacting with peers, but he's not capable of being in a workshop program. He really needs more support than that. We've worked very hard to go to different programs with Heather's assistance and look at the quality of the programs and what we think is a good, suitable option for him. And we are really happy that we found one. The issue now is going to be whether or not he can go when he gets to the age of 21 in May. So we're very worried about his future because we want him to maintain the skills that he's gained through the great work that has taken place at Summit. Charlie has learned to assist and be partially able to dress himself. He can eat independently. Even though he's nonverbal, he's learned some sign language and he can use an iPad to communicate. These are great skills that help him enjoy his life and be functional, and we don't want him to lose those things. We don't want him to sit at home and watch TV and sleep all day. That is not going to be good for him. He has enough challenges to face right now that he gets through the day despite them. We don't want to add depression and loneliness to his to the hurdles that he has to address. We believe that he deserves to have a good quality of life. He's had a good quality of life so far, and we want him to maintain that. He's a human being, and he deserves to live with dignity. He's also a citizen of this state and of this country, and he deserves to be treated in a respectful way, not shunted off into some corner because he has disabilities. The other thing I don't want to go over my time limit, but I want to say something about the circle of support that I keep hearing about, and that's supposed to take the place of formal services. And I know for us, and probably for many, many of you and many other people who can't be here today, this is not an option. We have parents, Charlie's grandparents, they're all in their 90s. They can barely take care of themselves, and they're out of state. They can't help us. Our brothers are both out of state, they're full-time employed, they can't help us. We have friends, many friends in the community that are very supportive and kind, but they are employed, they need to support themselves. They can't help us. We live in a rural community, Springville. There isn't anything in Springville that Charlie could do during the day, and no place where he could go that would be supportive to him. Charlie's community is the community he's in now, and the community he needs to go into in a day have program. That's the community that Charlie has grown up in, that he loves, that has cared for him, and that he needs to be involved in the future. That's his community, that's his circle of support. And I know Charlie can continue to thrive if he has those opportunities. We've worked hard all his life to be sure that he has these supports. The people at the school at Summit have worked hard to maintain him. Our service coordinator has worked hard to help him. And we don't want to see all that lost. Now that we've spent all the time looking for a program, working out the big issue of transportation, and choosing a good place for him, it's terrifying and heartbreaking to think that he wouldn't be able to pursue that and thrive in that environment because there's no money available to help him. We are really panicked. Charlie is a very sweet person. People love his smile. I think you can see his smile up there. He just, is a great smiler. Charlie's very sweet, and he's a nice person to be around. He's not demanding. He's easygoing, and he's a young man now who, with some help, can really enjoy his life. We really, really need the help of the legislators and their representatives who are here today, because he needs your help. All of the kids, all of the young adults that we're talking about need your help. And I just really beg you, please don't abandon them. Don't abandon them when they are at the point in their life where they're counting on you to help them continue to be happy and productive and have a good quality of life.
Andrew's 16 years old. He's nonverbal. He's very low functioning on the autism spectrum. He communicates using gestures and sign language approximations. He attends Summit Educational Resources, and he'll be there until he's 21. Andrew, unfortunately, is not with us here today. He's at school, because being in a room this big and with this many people might bring out some behavioral issues. His behavioral issues are under control now, but that wasn't always the case. When he was 10 years old, his behaviors were so out of control that my wife Sue and I had to bring him down to Baltimore, Maryland, to the Kennedy Krieger Institute in Johns Hopkins University. He was there as an inpatient for 6 months. They were probably the hardest 6 months of his life, and they certainly were for us. We made many trips down to Baltimore to support him and to be with him. Thankfully, the staff at Kennedy Krieger and Johns Hopkins, through behavioral interventions and medications, made tremendous progress with Andrew. After 6 months, he came back to Buffalo a changed person. But there's no cure for autism, and there's no cure for his behaviors. He's always at risk, and he's just one episode away from returning to his self-injurious and aggressive behaviors. Things are going okay now for Andrew, but my greatest concern and fear is what will happen to Andrew when he's 21 years old and ages out of the educational system. He will lose all the supports and services he has now. Andrew, as I said, is very low functioning and nonverbal, so private employment is just not going to be an option for him. But he still needs someplace to go. He still needs a purpose in life. He still needs something to do with his time. In addition to our anxiety over his services, we are waiting for a residential placement for him because we know we can't take care of Andrew for the rest of our lives. So we're facing a brick wall when Andrew turns 21. What will he do? Where will he live? Andrew needs structure. It's what keeps him under control. He needs to be constantly involved, constantly busy, and engaged in activities. If Andrew were to be at home for weeks upon weeks with nothing to do and nowhere to go, it would send him over the cliff and back to the bad times. We can already see the beginnings of regression and the start of some behaviors when Andrew is on a long break from school, such as the upcoming holiday break. Life without activities for Andrew would be very sad indeed. We can't allow this to happen to Andrew and to others like him. So why am I here today? What am I asking for? We need support services, we need housing options, we need employment options. One size does not fit all. Most of all, we need a commitment from the state of New York that they will be there for Andrew and the thousands of people like him. New York can't abandon its most vulnerable citizens just because they turn 21 and age out of the educational system. Parents are not going to live forever. These young adults have many needs, and their families can't possibly be expected to provide for their supports and services that they need to lead a meaningful life. We need help, we need services, we need New York to step up and do what's right for the developmentally disabled population. I thank all the legislators who have come here today. We need you to go back to Albany, and we need you to champion our cause.
Taylor is 21 years old and is diagnosed with pervasive developmental disabilities, obsessive compulsive disorder, and anxiety disorder. She functions at the level of a 5 to 8-year-old. Haley is 18 years old and is autistic, nonverbal, and hearing impaired. She functions at the level of an 18 to 24-month-old. She has struggled with many medical issues since birth and has no means of communication. Both of our girls require help in all areas of daily living, including bathing, dressing, and feeding. But their diagnosis is not all of who they are. They are people just like you and I. Taylor is a sweet, funny girl with the kindest of hearts. Everyone instantly falls in love with Taylor. Haley is a feisty, lovable girl who is full of endless energy and who loves music. Yeah, that's you. They have taught us the meaning of unconditional love, and we truly feel blessed to be a
I need the governor to make no more cuts to residential and day services for people with developmental disabilities. My son actually lives in an institution that is slated to close. He's been ready to leave since April of 2012, but can't find an appropriate residential or day program in the community. It is costing the state of New York $5,000 per day for him to remain in an institution. And even now, that the institution is going to close, we're still waiting, and we will probably wait till the very last day that institution, before that institution closes, because we can't get services. And I'm a person who will get services because that institution is closing. There are 900 people in this region who are waiting, who don't have the pull that I do, and those folks need help too.